What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we'll be taking a look at another live fantasy football mock draft. But before doing that, a quick reminder again on the upcoming 2019 Fantasy Football Draft Guide by ADP. Everything you need to know about contents, pricing is in the description box. Go ahead, do yourself a favor, and get a copy. But for now, let's go ahead and turn our attention to this draft as we drop right into the first round. The draft already in progress. As you can see, it is a 10-man PPR league on NFL.com. We have got the 6th overall pick. Purposefully wanted to go ahead and put myself in a situation where I've kind of avoided a little bit because usually I'm either at the start or the end of these mock drafts trying to go running back. Because that's what I'm most likely to do in my actual drafts. But, for the sake of diversifying things a little bit, let's go with a wide receiver and then maybe wide receiver again. Go heavy on the wide receivers, see what happens, see what type of running backs are going to fall to us. Better quality running backs are more likely to fall since this is only a 10-man league. So it'll be interesting. I'll go with DeAndre Hopkins here. Usually I go Devonta Adams. He's my top rated wide receiver, or maybe a Julio Jones, but I'll go with Hopkins because I know some of the other running backs that I'll be targeting that I'll have a shot at are probably Devonta Freeman or Aaron Jones, and I don't want to double up running back and wide receivers for the most part, because obviously if you do that, and that offense has a tough outing, then you're really in for it. Your remaining team really has to put up good numbers for you have a chance to win that week. So for that reason, I like to diversify the roster as much as I can. But the picks before that, since we've got some time here before next selection, Barkley, Zeke, Kamara, McCaffrey, Gurley at number 5. So the biggest takeaway there is that NFL just still hasn't, updated their rankings maybe as much as some other platforms, or at least to what a lot of people believe to be closer to the truth, and that is that Todd Gurley is really dealing with a long-term injury here that will limit him in 2019 and moving forward, which is causing a lot of people to, knock down his value or maybe even not draft him at all. Now, personally, he hasn't wound up on my do not draft list. I will say that because, at some point the value will be there. And I say at some point, probably, late second round. I'd be shocked if he's still there at that point. And I have a chance to take him, and I don't, because let's be honest, you know what the best thing to do is if you draft Todd Gurley and you're so worried about what's going to happen with him? Go ahead, draft Darrell Henderson. Problem solved, period, end of conversation. Darrell Henderson, the Rams moved up to draft him. He is going to be the running back number 2 for the Rams. Great college career. I think his skills translate well into what Todd Gurley did. If Todd Gurley isn't available, go ahead, just handcuff Henderson and then start him. He'll become one of the most valuable rookie running backs right from the get-go on that Rams offense. So to me, it's as simple as that. He's not going to be a running back that's going that early in drafts, especially if you're doing an auction draft. His price is going to be very low. A player that you can get, for mere pennies at that. So for that reason, to me, that's the simplest solution to all of this. But after a selection of Hopkins, we saw Melvin Gordon, Le'Veon Bell, Devonta Adams, Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, so run on wide receivers more so towards the end of the first round. Then David Johnson. David Johnson, a running back that has been seeing his value rise more and more the closer we get to actual, fantasy drafts. And I think people are just kind of remembering how dominant this guy was when he was healthy. The Kyler Murray pick has got a lot of people feeling better about that offense. And David Johnson's involvement as far as that goes as well. So I kind of understand that. Hell, I've even seen him be a first-round selection in 10-man PPR leagues. I've seen him go as early as the 5th pick overall. Probably a little bit early for me. I'm more likely to go ahead and pick one of the top 3 wide receivers than go with him, just because I'm not sure if the Cards did enough to address that offensive line. But, that's a conversation for another time. Now it is back to our selection, and I kind of said it. I'm going wide receiver here again. Alluded to it before. Normally, if this was the real deal, I'd be taking James Conner here without thinking about it. Instead, I'm going Juju Smith-Schuster. He is my wide receiver number 4. I think he's going to have a big year. I'm maybe one of the few people, or in the minority, I should say, that still thinks that the Steelers will be all right without guys like Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. And more so, it's Antonio Brown because Bell wasn't a part of that team last year to begin with. So I don't think he'll be missed that much. They've got Jalen Samuels. The biggest thing will be who will replace Juju Smith-Schuster, because he essentially replaces Antonio Brown, but who will be the new wide receiver number 2 for the Steelers? Is it going to be a Moncrief? Is it going to be a James Washington? Are we going to see Vance McDonald involved a lot more in the passing attack? I don't know. That's a question that's going to be very interesting. For now, however, it's time to turn our attention to the big board as we are back on the clock. Third round is here. We've gone wide receiver with our first 2 selections. So let's look at some of these other available players, and kind of like how we predicted, a guy here in Devonta Freeman that I am a big fan of is available. Leonard Fournette is ranked higher on this board, but I'm going with Freeman. I much more so prefer the offense he finds himself on. He's a risk. I'll admit it. He's battled injuries the last few years, but guess what? We've seen other guys do it and then us benefit by taking a chance on them. Maybe no one more so than a Keenan Allen. Devonta Freeman, go ahead. Just draft Ito Smith. Again, similar to a Todd Gurley situation. You're so worried, go ahead, draft the backup. And, it's a clear backup, a very valuable one at that. He'll be, at a little bit of a steeper price tag than a Darrell Henderson. I admit that. But he's worth the handcuff. So that's going to be my selection here. We're going Devonta Freeman. I think he's a better pass catcher than a Leonard Fournette. I think he's in a more stable offense, one of the best offenses the way that I see it in 2019 in the NFL and the Atlanta Falcons. We'll see if Damian Williams is still there for us with that pick in the 4th round. It'll be interesting to see. Recent reports coming out saying Damian Williams, no doubt about it, going to be the lead guy for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sure that kind of calms nerves for a lot of people. Maybe it's what a lot of people were waiting for, to go ahead and elevate him back to a 2nd round running back, because, the rankings on Damian Williams, he was another guy that his rankings were all over the place. I remember about a month, maybe even a month and a half ago, when I started to go ahead and deep diving these drafts. Obviously, a lot of time has passed since then, but Damian Williams, in certain platforms, the guy was going as an early 2nd round selection. So just keep that in mind. These rankings are ever changing. They're going to continue to change as we head into the preseason, as we go and see some injuries. So all of that is going to happen. A lot of news is going to come out on players with battles in training camp and stuff like that. So all of that is a factor in this. We're still at a very early point in the pre-fantasy football season. But again, let's look at some of these selections that have taken place since our Devonta Freeman pick. Leonard Fournette, AJ Green, Amari Cooper, Julian Edelman, Sony Michel, Stephon Diggs, George Kittle. Sony Michel, interesting to see that pick before a guy like Damian Williams or Aaron Jones or hell, even Marlon Mack. I think Sony Michel has a lot of upside as a standard running back, a lot of touchdown potential, but he is very, very limited as a pass catcher, similar to a Derrick Henry. I realize the Patriots are becoming more run first, but to me that does not mean that that's going to all of a sudden mean Sony Michel is going to be the can't miss guy. I think in PPR formats, James White, you could argue, is almost on the same level as value because after Julian Edelman, who is the next best pass catcher, the next most trusted guy by Tom Brady? To me, that's an easy answer, and it's James White. So a later round guy that I'd go ahead and try and target, see what happens. I realize there's a lot of names in that backfield. So if for that reason you go ahead and say I'm not gonna trust any of these guys, then I also understand. That's a personal preference. There's certain guys that I kind of feel a certain type of way about. Maybe just for example, a Sammy Watkins. Personally, I've never been the biggest Sammy Watkins fan. I think he is overrated. I think the contract he got last year was bewildering. I think he gets hurt way too often. I think even when he was healthy, he couldn't capitalize on that Kansas City offense and Patrick Mahomes last year. So even with Tyreek Hill, I'm most likely not playing a single snap this year. Sammy Watkins is a guy that I'm most likely going to avoid. I don't trust him as a starting wide receiver. But enough of that. Let's look at our next selection here because it will be Aaron Jones, kind of like how we predicted. We avoided Devontae Adams and Julio Jones. We went with DeAndre Hopkins, and Aaron Jones and Devonta Freeman fell to us. Right now, I really, really like this roster. I think Devonta Freeman, even though he is a risk, stays healthy. This dude is a RB1. Aaron Jones, I'm not as worried about Jamal Williams as a lot of other people might be. I think that Aaron Jones proved it last year when he got back from his suspension. He is the guy to lead that offense as their main running back. I think Aaron Rodgers has seen that as well, and we all know what Aaron Rodgers, kind of wants. He gets. So to me, I mean, the production is the easiest factor to look for Aaron Jones. He's going to be the main guy. Maybe if you take a shot on him, you handcuff him with a Jamal Williams. So that's another factor there. But it is our pick again, and let's look at some of these other players that are still available. I'm looking at some of these other running backs, and since we ignored the running back position, since admittedly so, we've got some question marks, some risks. Let's go with another running back here, bolster up that position. Kerryon Johnson, Chris Carson, the two names that I'm considering. I'd also be considering a Kenyon Drake. I'm not going to lie to you. I really like his potential in a PPR league. Frank Gore gone. He's going to have all the opportunities in Miami, one of the main weapons that they have left, even though they might have a horrid year. But I'm going with Kerryon Johnson. I think he will have a good season. I have him ranked a little bit higher than Chris Carson because of what he can do as a pass catcher. I think Rashad Penny will get much more so involved in Seattle. And even though the Detroit Lions added C.J. Anderson, I think they all know Kerryon Johnson is the main guy there. I think they're committed to running the football. We'll see how well they do that because obviously before last year they were historically bad at doing it. But then bring in Kerryon Johnson, he kind of changes the whole atmosphere as far as the running game is concerned. Now we're willing to take a Detroit running back, in the 5th round or whatever that is. In other formats, again, this is partially because it is a 10-man league, and we picked him in the mid 40s as far as overall picks are concerned, but I think that's still good value for a Kerryon Johnson. You're going to see him go earlier in some other formats. Now let's kind of look at some of these other available players. David Montgomery, a guy that I would definitely consider. I think it's too early to take him now, however, because there's other players that I really like that are starting caliber players, and I think David Montgomery is going to take a little bit to develop. I think he's going to be a guy that is a bigger name towards the end of the season more so than anything. I see guys like Jarvis Landry, DJ Moore, Tyler Boyd. I really like them. I'm not going to lie to you. I also see Andrew Luck, a guy that I think will be a top-notch quarterback. But you know what? I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here. I'm going to go ahead and select Tyler Boyd. I think he is a starting caliber wide receiver. It's all right. He's a bench player for now. But it just speaks to the amount of depth on this roster, in my opinion. We'll see if we can go ahead and get a quarterback in the 7th round. Since this is auto pick, I anticipate we're going to see a lot of quarterbacks go. There goes Andrew Luck. We might even see some defenses start to go. But that's what happens in these auto drafts. The robot starts to auto-fill their rosters, and that equates to some kickers, some defenses. So don't pay too much attention to that. More so, it's all about the player breakdown and these player positional rankings. And so far, I think we've done a good job at kind of putting together the best available roster. But I will still look at the quarterback position because I see a guy here in Matt Ryan that I have ranked as my 3rd overall quarterback. I think he has the MVP type of year in him in 2019. We all know how well the Falcons play indoors. And guess what? They've got 13 indoor games this season. Obviously, that shouldn't be the end-all, be-all factor for the Falcons in judging how well their offense will be, but they've got so many weapons. Matt Ryan proved it last year, after an off year the year before. He's a producer. He's got so much talent around him. I think he's got a shot at a 5,000 plus yard season. I'm going with Matt Ryan here. I know he won't be available to me in the 8th round if I wait too long. I'm getting a great starting caliber quarterback the way that I see it, and then we can go ahead and keep adding depth later on. We'll queue up a couple players because, again, this will turn into just defenses and kickers being drafted, and that's no fun. So for that reason, let's again queue up some of these players. DJ Moore still available. It'll be interesting to see if he makes it to us. He's a guy that I like in Carolina. I think he will take that next step as a wide receiver. I do actually like Greg Olsen and a Christian McCaffrey more so as pass catchers, but I still think DJ Moore will get his as far as wide receivers and the Panthers go. I mean, he is their top wide receiver. Maybe not their top pass catcher, but definitely their top wide receiver. I'm going to take a shot on him here. Keep filling up the depth on the bench, and kind of like how we said, we are seeing the defenses start to go here. Let's queue up a couple of these next players and call it a day. We're going to go ahead and add Sterling Shepard to the queue. I've been on record saying how much I think he will have a big year. I'm going to go ahead and add Tavon Coleman. Early reports are that he is the favorite as far as winning that running back job in San Francisco, and I do think whoever gets that job, especially if it's someone that can pass catch like Tavon Coleman, he is very valuable. I'm going to go ahead and add Darrell Henderson because of what we mentioned with Todd Gurley, and by doing so, I might not own Todd Gurley, but I could potentially own his replacement at some point during the season. That's very valuable. I'm going to go ahead and add maybe a Peyton Barber, add to the queue. Let's go ahead and add some tight ends to this queue as well. I'll go ahead and see who's still available. Scroll up. David Njoku, Austin Hooper. I think the guy that should be mentioned here is Greg Olsen. I've been on record saying if Greg Olsen can stay healthy, to me, he is a top 5 tight end. Let's see if we can go ahead and add some other players on this queue. Allen Robinson, not a bad name to know. I realize I'm back on the clock, so I'll just draft Tavon Coleman here. Scrolling down, a Mecole Hardman, I'd be willing to take a shot on him. Ito Smith, since we do have Devonta Freeman. And I'll leave it at that for now. I think that's a good place to kind of wrap things up. Let me know what you guys think of this roster. So kind of fill in the blank with Greg Olsen at the tight end position. I'll even go ahead and do it for you guys as my pick is coming up again, because he will still be available here, and we are again back on the clock just so we fill out this roster. So we have got Matt Ryan, Devonta Freeman, Aaron Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, Juju Smith-Schuster, Greg Olsen, Kerryon Johnson at the flex, Tyler Boyd, DJ Moore, Tavon Coleman as bench players, and then some of the other guys that we queued up. Now, obviously, I realize if this was a full lobby of actual individuals and we went this deep, kickers, defenses wouldn't go. Some of these players wouldn't be available, but I do think the core of the roster, you could argue that they could be available. So maybe the top 4 picks: Hopkins, Juju Smith-Schuster, Aaron Jones, and Devonta Freeman. And I do think that's where a lot of the scoring potential will come here. Let me know what you guys think of doing this in these 10-man leagues, kind of going wide receiver heavy. Do you like that strategy here? Even though I'm personally someone that likes to go running back heavy, if I looked at this example, I wouldn't mind giving it a go during my actual draft. So let me know what you think of these picks. Let me know what you think of some other players that maybe we scrolled over, and any other questions you guys might have. And as always, if you enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in future videos.